You think you know yourself? You believe you'd recognize the moment, the line you'd never cross, the thing you'd never do. But what if that moment doesn't feel like a moment? What if it's slow, quiet? What if it comes wearing a uniform, holding a clipboard, and telling you you're doing the right thing? Evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it looks exactly like you. This is not a story about monsters. It's about people. People like you and the choices they made or didn't make. So ask yourself one thing. When the moment comes, will you even notice it? What if the real danger isn't outside of you, but inside? Not in some criminal, some stranger, some monster, but in the quiet parts of yourself you never had to test. We like to believe we're good people. We trust our values, our decency, our sense of right and wrong. But those things are easy when nothing's at stake. The real test comes when the rules bend, when the pressure rises, when the world tells you it's not your fault, you're just doing your job. That's how darkness grows, not with violence, not with hatred, but with obedience, with silence, with a quiet moment when you look the other way and call it normal. This isn't a warning about others, it's about you and how far or how fast you could drift without even realizing it. Just a version of yourself, born from fear, from silence, from the wrong moment at the wrong time. That's the core of the Lucifer Effect by Philip Zimbardo. It doesn't ask, why do bad people do evil things? It says, without blinking, what if it's you? You don't need to be sick, broken, or inherently cruel to commit evil. You just need a system that lets you stop asking questions. We imagine evil as something loud and monstrous, but most of the time, it enters quietly, through small compromises, a borrowed office pen, a lie to avoid discomfort, a rule ignored because everyone else does it. And just like that, you stop feeling responsible. Then one day, you look back and realize you didn't fall off a cliff. You slid down a slope, 1 inch at a time. Take the case of Ivan Chip Frederick, an ordinary man, a U.S. Army reservist, psychologically stable, no signs of aggression. Then came Abu Ghraib, a prison in Iraq, a system out of control, and Chip, along with others, became part of the abuse. What changed? Not his DNA, not some dark awakening, just the context, the uniform, the silence of those around him. That's what Zimbardo's book reveals. Identity is not fixed. You are not one solid thing. You are multiple versions of yourself, waiting for the right or wrong context to emerge. The person you are at work, with friends, with strangers, under stress, in uniform, in a crowd. Every version has its own script, and in the right environment, you might follow a script you never knew existed. One of the most disturbing truths from Milgram's obedience study is not just that people obeyed, but how easily they did it. Participants were asked to deliver electric shocks to a person in another room. Whenever they gave a wrong answer, they heard screams, they hesitated, but 65% continued until the very end. They weren't threatened, they weren't forced, they were simply told, the experiment must go on. And that phrase, spoken with calm certainty, silenced their doubts. Why? Because we're taught from childhood to trust authority, to listen to teachers, doctors, police, managers. We associate uniforms, titles, and procedures with safety, with legitimacy. But authority doesn't always equal truth, and institutions don't always protect life. Sometimes they protect themselves. The danger lies in obedience, without questioning. When responsibility is outsourced, when moral instinct is silenced by a clipboard and a white coat. The lesson? Authority only works with your consent. And every time you blindly follow, you help build a world where cruelty hides behind rules. Zimbardo's own experiment, the Stanford Prison Study, took this further. 24 college students, half assigned as guards, half as prisoners, all healthy, all stable. Within 6 days, guards became cruel. They imposed punishments, forced humiliation, crossed ethical lines. Why? Because they were told, you're in charge, and no one told them where the line was. Most people believe they'd never harm another person. But what if no one knew it was you? De-individuation is what happens. When you feel anonymous, invisible, just one face in a crowd. You wear a mask, a uniform, a badge, and slowly, the you begins to fade. This isn't hypothetical. In every riot, looting, or mob, normal people do things they never would alone. Why? Because they don't feel like themselves anymore. They feel like part of something bigger. And in that bigger, morality often gets lost. Guards at Stanford wore mirrored sunglasses. Prisoners had no names. And soon, roles replaced reality. When I becomes we, and we stops asking questions, evil can walk in without resistance. In an old parable, a wise monk told his disciple, "Inside every person, two wolves live. One is darkness, filled with hate, envy, fear. The other is light, gentle, just, patient. The two fight every day." The disciple asked, "And which one wins?" The monk replied, "The one you feed. We're the same. Each choice feeds something. Each gesture, a direction." Then there's dehumanization, one of evil's favorite tools. No one wakes up and says, "Today, I will hurt an innocent person." But they might say, "Today, I'll deal with threats. Today, I'll eliminate the enemy." It changes language. He's not a man, he's a terrorist. She's not a child, she's future danger. They're not citizens, they're infestation. The more you repeat a label, the less you feel the person behind it. And when people become labels, violence feels justified, even moral. Governments don't say, "We're gonna bomb children." They say, "We're conducting a strategic strike." They don't say, "We're imprisoning people without trial." They say, "We're maintaining national security." This is the power of euphemism. Words that soften horror, that clean the blood from the sentence, that allow evil to speak and sound reasonable. You're not cruel, you're professional. You're not complicit, you're just doing your job. Language is not neutral. It shapes what we see and what we allow. The more polite the vocabulary of evil becomes, the more invisible it grows. In systems of power, the greatest illusion is this: I had no choice. But personal responsibility begins, where excuses end. Even in the darkest conditions, we are never fully powerless. We may be pressured, confused, manipulated, but we are never machines. Responsibility doesn't mean being perfect. It means being awake. It means asking, why am I doing this? Who benefits? What happens if I stop? There's always a moment, even a small one, when you can step out of the system and return to yourself. That moment is everything. We often imagine heroes as soldiers, saints, revolutionaries. But Zimbardo gives us a truer image. A hero is anyone who chooses what is right when it's hardest. It can be the nurse who reports abuse, the worker who exposes corruption, the stranger who steps in when everyone else stays quiet, like Wesley Autry, who jumped onto subway tracks to protect someone he didn't know. No grand speeches, no audience, just presence, and the refusal to wait for someone else. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision that something else matters more. It's tempting to believe the evils of history were committed by monsters, people unlike us, twisted minds, broken souls. But that's a lie we tell, to feel safe. The men who operated gas chambers, the citizens who stood by, as children were dragged into trucks. They weren't demons, they were teachers, bakers, fathers, mothers, ordinary people, just like us. What made them dangerous was not their nature, it was their obedience. History doesn't need monsters to repeat itself. It only needs forgetfulness. And what about God? Maybe God isn't in the booming voice, not in the institution, not in the chain of command. Maybe God is in the whisper, that small tension in your chest, that pause before the wrong decision, that quiet feeling that says, stop. When you dehumanize someone, and something inside you flinches, maybe that's God. When you're told to obey, and a whisper inside you asks, is this right? Maybe that's God. We don't always need thunder to know what's good. Sometimes, we just need stillness, a space between the order and the action. And in that space, a voice, soft, unyielding, yours or something deeper. Listen, the line between good and evil isn't a wall. It's a thread, thin, movable, daily. It lives in habits, in silence, in what we allow. And the truth is this: you are not immune, you are not above it, but you are aware. And awareness brings responsibility. Be the one who says no. Be the one who steps out. Be the one who remembers who they are, even when the crowd forgets. When the moment comes, don't wait. Look inside yourself and choose. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support this channel, you can subscribe. If something you heard today felt personal, leave a like. Stay, listen, come back for more. In the beginning, it was just me. Now, we are here together. This is not a place for crowds. It's a place for truths. Truths that sit quietly, in silence. Until next time, I hope you'll find your own path, too.